Beetle movie is almost here. And I'm actually really excited for this film, as I mentioned in some of my reviews, because I feel like Blue Beetle is a really underrated character. And I'm going to be honest here, I think he's the best legacy hero. And for those of you unaware, basically, Blue Beetle started out, I think, what was it, Charlton Comics, and then like the 1930s as Dan Garrett, then he became Ted Kord, and then he became the Blue Beetle that I think is most prominent today, the Jaime version. But something I love about Blue Beetle is each version of this character is different. It's not the same character rehashed time and time again. See, aside from Flashes and Green Lanterns, legacy characters really weren't all that common up until Marvel and DC started pumping out as many different versions of a character as they could to make more money. But there was always some. But one thing about like Blue Beetle to me that kind of makes him the best one is the fact that he just stands out in every different form. How I really came to love this character is through the show Batman the Brave and the Bold. This was an amazing cartoon, and it's probably one of my favorite Batman cartoons because it really puts Batman in a really interesting place. It's more darker Batman, but in lighthearted stories. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but it's amazing. And it's more Batman as a superhero than a vigilante. I don't know, I'm getting off subject here. But basically, this was my introduction to Blue Beetle. And what it does is really cool. Basically, this picks up on Jaime. He is the main Blue Beetle in this story. And there is Ted Kord. He has passed on. And there's some episodes of him, so that's kind of cool. And Batman kind of becomes a mentor to Blue Beetle in this version of the story a little bit too, kind of like trains him how to be a hero. And all in all, it's a great show. I love Batman Brave and Bold. I highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it. But yeah, again, it's not just... I think the best way to describe how different he is really just to look at it. So you have Dan Garrett, who is the original Blue Beetle. And pretty cool, Blue Beetle actually goes all the way back to 1939. That's his first appearance, August of 1939. Interesting that the Blue Beetle movie's coming out in August. I wonder if that was planned or if that's just like a happy little accident coincidence. I don't know, kind of cool. But yeah, basically Dan is, he's kind of like your stereotypical 1940s superhero. But anyways, he ends up getting the Scarab. It ends up giving him powers, super strength, and it was kind of weird because sometimes like he ended up getting different powers. It was the 1940s, it's weird. But mainly he had some abilities that allowed him to properly fight crime. But then his successor, Ted Kord, comes in. And Ted is Dan's student, by the way, so once Dan dies, he ends up passing on the title of Blue Beetle to Ted. Now, what's really interesting to me about the Ted Kord version of Blue Beetle is he's created by Steve Ditko, who is the co-creator of Spider-Man, for those of you unaware. He also is completely opposite from Dan. Like, Ted does not get superpowers. He doesn't really get to use the Scarab like the other Blue Beetles. He actually is kind of more like a Batman or just a generic vigilante type superhero because he doesn't have those abilities. He has to use gadgets and gear and all kinds of stuff to fight crime and save the day. And I think that's kind of a cool concept because it's weird to go from his successor, who is superpowered, to him, who's just a regular guy. Something you really see with a lot of these legacy characters, typically they do not get downgraded in power when a new character picks up the mantle. Being a Blue Beetle is not about its ups and downs, and it usually ends in death. So when Ted does unfortunately die, we get to Jaime's era. Is, again, it's completely different because his version of Blue Beetle is a little bit more closer to something like Iron Man. He has an armored suit that he fights with, and it's actually pretty cool. How they go around this is, explain it, is the Scarab is not actually some ancient artifact, but is actually from space, and it belongs to the Reach, and it gives Jaime an alien suit that he can fight with. And this is kind of interesting because Dan got superpowers from it, and Ted Kord could never use it, he could never figure out how to get it to work, but Jaime gets a battle suit. Honestly, this is just so insane. Like, I absolutely love this reveal, and I love this take on it. It's not just, oh, we decided to slap Jaime and a Ted Kord costume and call it a day. It's quite literally doing something creative with the character. You can't deny that Disney and Warner Brothers is pumping these characters out like crazy just to potentially make more money, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's really cool that instead of giving us like, oh, another Flash in our suit, we actually got 3 different distinctive superheroes. Point out, I'm not trying to slander every legacy character in existence. I do think there's some pretty amazing ones. I love all the Flash and Green Lanterns, although I don't know if Green Lanterns really counts, considering they're more of like a police force, but still. Also, an FYI, I have skimmed over a lot of what happened in the comics, so mind you, there's a lot more to it than that. They didn't all just like wake up and become Blue Beetle. There's a lot more to the actual story, which I highly recommend you reading because it's amazing and I love them. But still, for the sake of this video, I kind of want to keep it a little short. But yeah. overall, I think Blue Beetle is the best. Again, like I said, this character is not just the same character 3 times over. It's actually someone quite different, original. And let me know in the comments, which legacy characters or even multiverse characters you like, and if you think this concept is being a little overdone too.